We've heard yesterday the Court of Appeal ruled that the government's policy on expanding the airport with the third runway was unlawful because, crucially, they say ministers didn't take into proper account how it affected Britain's climate commitments, this the Climate Change Act and the net zero target. That doesn't just mean that the third runway at Heathrow is under threat. That means pretty much any expansion of any airport, any road project, and I would have thought pretty much every single major energy plant project is also now going to be under legal threat.
It is a hugely important precedent, and that is one of the reasons why we are appealing to the Supreme Court. But let's also be clear that the National Policy Statement has only been suspended by the Court, pending a review by the government to make sure that it is compatible with the Paris Accord on climate change. And we're confident that that is very fixable. And the reason we're confident is that we have a plan already and have committed to meeting the conditions of the Paris Accord on climate change. It's the biggest issue of our time, but we've got to get the right balance between being able to still fly and as an island nation to be able to connect with the world and decarbonising our economy. And we've got a plan that will allow us to do that.
Well, again, a lot of people are saying, look, expanding an airport, and we're not talking about sort of adding a third capacity. We're sort of adding Gatwick Airport, effectively, get all over again to Heathrow's capacity already. It will be a huge extra capacity there at Heathrow. And there's talk from Green campaigners. We spoke to one earlier in the show, saying, look, we cannot achieve any of these emissions. This is not the way we should be going. Flying is not the future. I'm not quite sure how they think we're going to get around the world if we're not going to be flying. But isn't the reality that if we don't have that capacity here as a hub airport, that capacity simply moves elsewhere, to Schiphol, to other airports around Europe? So any of those concerns about carbon emissions here in the UK, they're just going to be moved elsewhere, aren't they?
You are exactly right. And I heard someone talking yesterday about how the UK could set a lead in the world by stopping flying. Well, no one is going to follow that lead. We will just destroy our economy and lose our ability to even decarbonise the rest of our economy. The lead that the government should be taking is saying this is how we are going to decarbonise aviation and other sectors, and they have a fantastic platform to do that when they host COP26 in November. This is vital for the future of our economy. Flying is not the problem, carbon is. We've got to take carbon out of flying, and then our future generations can enjoy the benefits, which are fantastic from aviation, for generations to come.
We were talking earlier in this week about the benefits of hub airports, and certainly a lot of people will be wondering how someone from another country flying into Heathrow using the third runway and then getting a connecting flight and flying elsewhere in the world, how on earth that can benefit the British economy other than benefiting, the retailers who've got their high-end shops at Heathrow Airport. Can you explain what the benefit is, if there is any, to the rest of us?
It sounds counterintuitive, doesn't it? But the way it works is that most airports in the world are point-to-point airports. British people get on a plane at Gatwick and they fly it to their holiday and they come back again. And you'll find that those planes tend to go at just the times when people want to go, holiday seasons, for example. What happens at the hub airport is that we pull demand from all across a region, Europe in our case, and that allows us to fill planes any day of the week. So even if not many Britons need to fly to long-haul destinations such as Tokyo or Mexico City on any day, because we can collect all the people who do want to fly to Mexico City on that day from across Europe, we can make that flight viable. And the benefit that we get from that is that we can support more flights to long-haul destinations every single day of the year than any other airport in Europe. And that's a fantastic advantage for the UK, because it means if you're a business person and you do need to get to Tokyo, there is always a flight, actually 3 flights a day to get you there. Go to almost any other city in Europe and you don't have a direct flight to Tokyo because there's just not enough demand from the point-to-point airport.
What about the Green campaigners who say, look, people aren't flying for business anymore and we shouldn't be encouraging more flights for tourism because the world is changing?
Well, let's just think about what we're saying there. Business is the lifeblood of any economy. Tourists are one of the biggest sectors for this UK. Most of the tourists coming through Heathrow are inbound from China and other countries coming to spend their money here. Students coming to spend their money at the great British universities. Inward investors coming here to invest in their head offices, their industrial plants. This is the lifeblood of the British economy, and Heathrow is the beating heart of the British economy. We handle 40% of all the UK's exports, and yet we are at capacity. if the Prime Minister is serious about wanting to be global Britain, doing new trade deals with all these long-haul distant markets you can only get to from a hub airport, he can't do it without expanding his biggest port. And that's why it's so simple that you either, if you don't expand Heathrow, there will be no global Britain. If you don't expand Heathrow, we will be flying through Paris to get to global markets. We'll be taking back control from Europe with one hand and giving it to the French with the other. That is why your colleague was absolutely right. If we don't expand airport capacity in this country, we'll just be flying through other countries to get there.
Am I right in thinking, it was on Twitter yesterday, that the boss of Schiphol Airport in Holland, that he actually sends you, or whoever is the boss of his at the time, a very, very glamorous, posh cake as a thank you every single time there is yet another court setback or a delay by the government because of the extra business they get as a result?
He does, and I sent him a cake when we make progress. So it's
how many cakes has he sent you, and how many cakes have you sent him? I mean, we're looking at 50 years of battling over this now, aren't we?
I think we've had 3 cakes and he's had 2 so far. So I'm looking forward. I'm sure he'll be baking as we speak.
Realistically.
But this is.
No, but realistically, even if you did get approval in the next couple of years, we're still looking at that no new third runway for a number of years. Meanwhile, by 2025, in 5 years' time, China is planning to build 137 not new runways but new airports. How are we possibly going to compete with that?
Well, we don't need to compete with China. We just need to be able to connect with China, and only Heathrow can connect with China. But your wider point is absolutely right. If we're not expanding Heathrow, then we will be helping to expand Paris or Schiphol. We'll be helping the countries who are now our competitors economically to do better. And to the earlier point, since the coalition government blocked Heathrow expansion back in 2010, not an ounce of carbon was kept out of the sky as a result of that. Why? Because people just flew from the UK to Paris to get to global markets. That is how crazy it is for people to say the UK can stand alone and stop flying. We won't stop flying. We're an island nation and a trading nation. We want to get to the world. The world wants to come to us. And people will find a way of getting here, even if they can't fly through the UK. So we shouldn't indulge in this national act of self-harm. We should be tackling the real issue and taking carbon out of aviation.
And there is actually quite a lot of movement going on within the airline industry to improve not just the pollution levels of aeroplanes, but also noise levels. Big concern for a lot of Londoners. I'm a supporter of a Heathrow expansion, even though I know I will be able to hear the planes from my back garden. But it seems to me this is just part of doing business if you want to live in a major hub city. But how quickly can that be developed so we actually do see cleaner planes and quieter planes? So the people who do live under the flight path and the people who are affected by the pollution in the local area around an airport aren't actually living with bigger problems.
Well, you're right. The planes are getting quieter and cleaner, and we actually incentivise airlines to send their cleanest and quietest planes to Heathrow. There's quite a big financial incentive for them to do that. I lived in the flight path for 20 years, and I used to enjoy watching the tail fins flying over my head, and 3 o'clock in the afternoon was Concorde time. But it is massively quieter today than it was then, and will continue to get quieter. And I was pleased that the appeal court did confirm that the government was able to meet all of the requirements on air quality and noise with the plan that we have. And it will include insulating from noise around 100,000 homes and schools to make sure that people in the current and new flight paths are protected from noise. So it is a really exciting transformational plan.
OK, just finally, yes or no, John Holland-Kaye, is the Heathrow third runway ever going to be built?
Yes, and I will look forward to welcoming you on the first flight.
All right, I'll hold you to that.